own book, I assume?
I do.
Tara?
I do.
I don't have it, and I don't have my book either.
Oh, so these just arrived the other day. The printer had to shut down. There was a COVID outbreak, and they weren't sure they were going to have them on time. But I did get them in time for pub date, which is exciting.
It's so good.
I know.
It's really, I didn't realize it was that long when I read it.
It's one of my longer books.
Yeah.
375 pages.
Holy cow. That is long. Mine are like 250 usually.
Yeah, yours definitely looks slimmer.
Yeah.
Not by much. Not by much.
No, but I could buy 100 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's serious. So one thing I can't tell is whether we have any people who have arrived yet or what's going on.
That's what I don't know.
We could start off early if you want.
So I'm going to say hi, everyone.
Hi.
And say hi in the comments if you're here watching us. Emily and I are just going to chat for a second and wait for people to join maybe.
Christian says there's people here from a shop. So I'm Lockhart. And I have to point the other way. And this is Tara Altebrando. And it's her launch day for Take Me With You, which is an amazing thriller, which I have read and really loved. A total page turner, kind of in the vein of One of Us is Lying, in that there's 4 teenagers who are all thrown together by something really, really like a big mystery. But I'm going to let you just tell us what the premise of the book is. Give us the elevator pitch.
Okay, so the premise of the book is basically that there are 4 teenagers who don't really know each other very well, all of whom receive a cryptic message from their school's messaging app that basically tells them that they should report to the music room to deal with an urgent matter. And they're all very confused by this right out of the gate. They start to show up one by one, and the music teacher isn't there. None of them know what could possibly be going on, but they start to notice that there is a small black cube, like 4 inches by 4 inches, sitting on the desk. And they're curious about what it is. They think it might be like an Alexa device or some kind of, electronic metronome, since it's the music room. So they start kind of chatting a little bit, like, what do you think that is? They say, like, hey, Google, play some music and stuff like that. Try to engage with this device. All of a sudden, one of them says, like, stop shaking it. Like, it pulses light. It's starting to interact with them a little bit. They start arguing about it immediately. One of them is mad that the other one is shaking it. And then the device starts generating messages. The first thing it says is, I am not a bomb, because somebody jokes, they're like, don't shake it. What if it's a bomb? It could explode. And then it settles in and starts just generating rules. And it says, do not tell anyone about the device. Do not leave the device unattended. And then it says, take me with you or else. And at that moment, the fire alarm goes off in the school, and these kids have to make a decision about if they're just going to leave it there. Obviously, it would be a very short book if they just left it there. So one of them grabs it and they head out with it. And the rules become increasingly complicated, and it starts just basically messing with their lives, like all good devices should do.
Yeah, it's very creepy and sort of friendly. Like it makes some of them like it, right? It kind of gains. It works on preys on the vulnerabilities of the students and gets them to reveal some secrets or feel like it almost understands them, like it might be sentient, or there's somebody who's behind it who is sentient. And it's very, to me, it's a sci-fi thriller, but at the same time, it's like having the worst toxic friend, like that friend who tells you all kinds of bad stuff that you have to do, or like won't let you say no to things, or doesn't know what your boundaries are, or or lures you into terrible temptation or whatever. That to me, that's what was so like universally human about this story was this toxic friendship element of the device.
So I think that's a good way to describe my daughter Violet's relationship with Alexa. And her relationship with Alexa was a little bit of the inspiration for the book. I think she's watching upstairs and she's going to be mad that I'm talking about her. But when we first got an Alexa, Violet got, she was like 7 or something. And she got a little bit more obsessed with the Alexa than the rest of us did. And it would always start out kind of fun, like, hey, Alexa, what should I be for Halloween? And it was cute. But every time she talked to Alexa for any length of time, it ended up being like a play date that went poorly, because then she would ask Alexa to play music and it would be like the motion picture soundtrack instead of the original cast recording. So then Violet was mad. And then she figured out that you could fire Alexa. You could say, Alexa, you're fired. And then Alexa like pouts and like storms off. So all of her interactions with Alexa seemed to go very poorly. But then the Alexa was in her house and then we went away for a weekend and she sighed at one point and I was like, what's wrong? And she said, I miss Alexa. And I just thought that was so weird that she had in her brain bonded even a little bit with this not very good AI. Like it's not even that sophisticated.
Right.
She was enough. Yeah. And she kept wanting to go back for more interactions and try again, like it would play out differently. And I thought that was really interesting. So that definitely factored into what kind of device I wanted to craft for the book.
That's funny because I project a lot of consciousness onto like stuffed animals and towels and, you know, like a little vase. Yeah. Like, yeah. And, you know, I feel like they might have hurt feelings if they're put in a box and I feel like they part of the household, blah, blah, blah. But at one point years ago, I wrote an article for Wired magazine. I used to be, you know, like a journalist, which I think you've done a bunch of that too, right? Where you write these magazine articles and sometimes you're just like, why have I been hired to do this? I don't know. I'm not the right person. So Wired hired me to write about all the different robot dogs on the market. And so we got like 6 different robot dogs for me to write like a single page puff piece about these robot dogs. And all these robot dogs were in our house. And
I still have one of those. I have a Sharper Image robot dog still. I gave it to my dad for Father's Day years ago, and he gave it back to me more recently. And it's terrible. It's like an actual robot looking one. It's not like fuzzy or
no, these were all robot-y looking.
Yeah.
And they all, the more I interacted with them and they failed to be properly sentient, the less I projected onto them. You know what I mean? So like the stuffed animal that's, you know, sits on my kid's bed, I'm like completely attached and I believe it knows everything. But the robot dog, I was like, you are just a robot and I don't feel anything for you because the AI was not anywhere near good enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think so that room you need to project imaginatively.
Right. So that's what I think that was interesting for me writing this book. A lot of AI movies and books become kind of obsessed with like the Turing test and can the AI convince humans that it's real? And I feel like that's less interesting than what we project onto the device. So I feel like there were like varying, you know, a lot of different moments in the book where my characters end up missing the device. They end up relying on it, kind of seeking it out for an emotional support. And they don't know where it's from or who's driving it or what is driving it. But that need for that kind of connection through technology is such like a real thing for all of us. Like one of the things that, in addition to like Violet getting obsessed with Alexa, there was a day where I was just like sitting out, I was swimming. So I should be completely relaxed and swimming, but I had left my phone several feet away, like on a dry patio area.
Mm-hmm.
And I covered it with a towel to protect it from the sun. And it reminded me of when my children were little and they would be like in a stroller napping outside. You know, if they kicked their feet out, you would cover their feet again. So I felt like I was taking this like maternal care of my phone. And it was a really weird moment. And then I'm in the pool and I'm by myself, which never happens. So I should be like enjoying just floating and relaxing. But I'm aware of my phone 20 feet away or whatever. And I'm like, it felt like a presence. It was like, do I have any new messages? Like, what's going on? And that was like, then I ended up pretty much having the idea, like, I should write a book about, like, what if your phone is your enemy? And I got out of the pool and had to dry off my hands so that I could start taking notes on my phone for what would become this book, Take Me With You.
Oh, that's amazing. So the book is set in Astoria, where I know that's your home
17 years. Yeah, I've been in Astoria 17 years, I think. 2003, yeah.
And it's got 4 characters, Eli, Eden, Marwan, and Ilanka, right? Mm-hmm. So just like tell us a little bit about like those people and the neighborhood of Astoria and like just what, you know, what's the vibe? It's like such a specific setting. It's not at all this like generic suburban high school that's supposed to be like everybody's school. You know, it's to me like very specifically New York City, Queens community and mix of people. And I really loved that about the book.
Yeah, it seemed like it was time for me to write a Queens book. I've written books in generic suburbs and, you know, I have a Brooklyn book because I lived in Brooklyn for a decade, but I really felt that once I had this idea for this plot, that it would really thrive in the Astoria setting because it's walkable. So it's a very densely populated, internationally diverse, wonderful, crowded, loud, everything. Best food in the world. Sorry, Brooklyn. Better food than Brooklyn. And it just seemed like it was, the device has this, like, as the rules keep getting more complicated, it makes life harder and harder for these 4 people who are trying to take care of it. And I feel like the density of a city setting really made it harder for them. They can't tell anyone about it. They're hiding it in public places. They don't know where to go to hang out. So it's like, it kind of ups the stress level. I feel like in the suburbs, teenagers have more places to go to be alone. And in Astoria, it's just harder. So I felt like it was finally the right time. Like, I feel like often I come up with a premise for a book and then I have to decide where I'm going to, you know, you decide where you're going to set it. Like for me, the setting is usually a secondary or a third kind of thing that comes along. And I was just excited that it felt like a good fit. So the 4 main characters, Eden, she's just, she's like a Caucasian girl who is, had a tragedy in her life and she's like super anxious. Marwan's parents are immigrants from Egypt. They own a restaurant. And they are the victims of some hate crimes during the course of the action of the book. Eli's family has Latino roots. He's struggling with an aging grandfather who's in the neighborhood in a nursing home. And Ilanka's parents are immigrants from Russia, and they have never really made any effort to kind of Americanize and assimilate. So she kind of feels like an outsider because she doesn't necessarily identify with her kind of like Russian identity, but doesn't have a new identity in its place. So they all have something that's kind of going on in their lives that they're using technology to kind of cope with. So Ilanka, she watches a lot of makeup tutorials and she takes a lot of selfies and she has a lot of Instagram followers and she takes that as like some kind of personal validation. Eden's dad has passed away and he used to be really into music and she is connecting to him through Spotify playlists that he left. So they're on their phones all the time, like most teenagers, but have various reasons. Eli feels a little bit neglected at home and is struggling with his grandfather, and he plays Sims all the time, and he has like generated this like kind of alter ego in the Sims world. And then Marwan is like desperate to kind of get out of Queens and see the world, and he spends a lot of time listening to podcasts that he feels like make his life feel bigger. So they're all like addicted to their phone, I think, in the same way that we all are, like just what's new, any new likes or follows or whatever. But they each have like a very specific kind of thing that their technology kind of adds to their life. But then the device comes along, and the device starts to kind of manipulate attachments and kind of starts to target their weak spots.
Yeah. I really loved how, there's the big mystery of what this device is and what it's going to do to them and how they're going to handle it. But there's also the fact that like none of them knows what's really going on with the others. And you get to see how like, you could go to school with someone every day and really have no idea who they are in their hearts. Right. And they were all mysteries to each other, I thought. And I really liked that. I want to say hi to the people. I can see people in the live comments.
I know, it's very exciting.
Thank you for coming. And we are going to open it up to questions and answers in a little bit. And so if you have a question, you can throw it into the live comments. And when I finish talking to Tara, then she will answer your questions. And we're psyched that you could join us for a little book chat. The book, if you've joined us just recently, is Take Me With You. Tara, do you want to hold it up again?
I do.
Your outfit matches it. I love that so much.
It's all planned. I literally have nothing else to do except today. I even have, I'll post it later. It's the one post I didn't get to on my social media today. I have a puppy picture with Take Me With You, the puppy for scale. The puppy is smaller than the book.
Oh. What kind of puppy is it?
Oh, he's like a Poodle Bichon.
What is it?
It's a Poodle Bichon Frise. Yeah, Poodle.
Oh
yeah.
My God.
Super cute.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's excellent.
I also want to mention that Emily has been nice enough to join me today, and she had a book called Again Again that just came out like 2 weeks ago, right? 2 or 3 weeks ago.
It came out June 2nd. Yeah.
2nd. Okay. It's so great. And one of the things that I love about Emily's books is that she is just always doing interesting things with structure and plot. She writes books backwards, and she has books where there's like a big reveal at the end that changes everything that you've read, and you have to go back and start all over again and figure out how she pulled it off. And this book is super fun because it plays around with the idea of the multiverse and like missed opportunities in life. So there are scenes that are written over and over again, and they're different every time, which I feel like must have been so fun because like that's like you're just revising, but you're just like, oh no, that can stay because I'm writing a book about the multiverse. So I wrote that scene and it's not what I want, but I'm going to leave it there.
Right. And then you write a totally another version.
Right.
Well, I'm often a person who, when I have a difficult or emotional email or conversation to have, I'll think through what I'm going to say 15 different ways. I'll write the email 15 different ways. I'll often then rewrite it in my head after I've done it, whether it was in live or an email. I'll just think, what if I had just said this? Then it would have gone better. And, I'm a second guesser of my own emotional life.
It's not just you.
Yeah, I figured that was pretty universal, and I was, looking for a way to put that into fiction in an entertaining way.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about plotting and plot structure, because I think one thing, even though our current books are relatively far apart in their genres, maybe, they're both young adult, but we both started out writing like kind of super relatable romantic comedies, and moved into writing thrillers. And for me, this was super hard because plotting a thriller is really different than plotting a romantic comedy. Structurally,
Absolutely.
they're really different animals. And the experience, the kind of the journey that you're trying to take your reader on is very different.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us a little bit about your process on Take Me With You, or on The Leaving, which, if you guys have not read The Leaving, is like a very edge of your seat thriller that Tara published. That was like one book ago, right?
The Leaving? It was actually 3 books ago, but the other 2.
The cruise ship book, which is also a thriller, which remind me of the cruise book.
And then The Possible was in there too. My telekinetic. Yeah.
Okay, so there's at least 4 thrillers, right?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I'm not sure I like really thought about that parallel in our kind of backlist, but for me, I was still writing what I felt like were kind of straightforward, contemporary, realistic YA when my daughter was 5 and she gave me the idea for The Leaving. She just said something creepy that set off the whole thing. And I realized, like, I remembered that a lot of my favorite books when I was younger were creepy. And I was like, why? How come I'm not writing creepy? I should be writing creepier stuff. And I totally had grown up reading mysteries like, Nancy Drew, but also like a ton of Agatha Christie. And so I feel like there was the rhythm of kind of a mystery thriller was, there in the bones. But the truth is, with each of these, well, definitely with The Leaving and very much with Take Me With You, I am terrible at plotting a first draft. And I don't know if my editor is here. I think she might be here. My first draft is always so far off. Like the plot takes a turn for the terrible at a certain point, and someone has to kind of tell me that's just really not what this book needs to be. And then I really redirect. Like, even my daughter, I was talking about, like, what am I going to say about the book tonight? She was like, do you remember when the device was more like a creature? And there was a version where it was like a furry, it was more Gremlin-esque. It was more of a kind of animal tale. So that obviously got purged in revision. But I think typically what I try to do, and I don't know if you do this, I feel like I know that once you have the premise for a story, it feels like there are certain things that have to happen in it for the reader to be satisfied. So I try to like think of those as like things that I'm heading for. So I'll actually sometimes make a list. Like if I'm reading a book about a creepy device, these as a reader are the things that I would kind of expect to happen in that book. And then I try to figure out how to shape that plot-wise.
Right. So you're sort of creating, someone described it once to me as you think I could think of the right word? Lighthouses, like beacons.
Oh, right? Yeah.
I can see that lighthouse in the distance, and that is the thing that must happen in this story. So I'm writing towards that, and I'm trying to get there to that satisfying thing, or that twist, or that, and there's usually a few of those where you're like, this is where I've got to deliver.
Oh yeah, I like that a lot. I feel like my personal process is like getting kind of shipwrecked and water laden along the way to the lighthouse before I figure out how to actually do what I want to do. Mm-hmm. I wish that weren't my process, but that's my process, is writing a bad book and then trying to make it better.
No, that's my process too, for sure. Right. Yeah. I think it's not universal, but it's pretty common, right? That you have to get that sloppy draft written in order to even begin to understand what it is you might be making. Yeah.
One of my favorite books about writing is Save the Cat, which I'm sure you've also read, and it's a screenwriting book. But I find that the language of that book has really stuck with me in terms of thinking about structure. And I'm always, when I start a story, I'm always looking for what they call the dark night of the soul, and thinking about where am I headed, where it feels like all is lost for the characters, like they're never going to get out of whatever situation they're in. I feel like the dark night of the soul is like I'm always writing towards it. it's just a fun way of thinking about stories that ultimately you're going to get to a point where it's all just falling apart.
Right. So if you guys don't know, if there's writers who are visiting with us, Save the Cat is a screenwriting book, which is kind of amazing because he has no interest in nuance or complexity or off the beaten path. He's just like, here's how you write a commercial screenplay, and you do it like this, and it's very formulaic. But it is also like the favorite book of so many writers I know, and I think the reason is that he's just giving you some rules, and you can follow these rules or not follow these rules. But when you touch down on the rules, like in the middle of your creative process, it can really, then you think, oh, I must have a Dark Night of the Soul roundabout now. Thank you for reminding me that would be good. And then you feel like he's just telling you what path to go on, and you can go forward. Is that how?
Yeah, and I love the fact, like, I feel like a lot of times the middle section of novels are really hard. You're like, what needs to happen to get to that moment? And he calls that the bulk of your story. He calls fun and games. And that, I think that worked especially well for me with Take Me With You, because it was about the device really starting to mess with everyone's heads. So just thinking of that as fun and games, like, oh, we're just complicating everything that's happening to them right now in a kind of fun and sinister way, was really helpful in terms of plotting this one.
Kristen just says, talking about Save the Cat writes a novel, which I have not read. I've only read this.
Oh, I haven't read that either. Interesting.
Maybe it's easier to just to read the screenplay one, because you can kind of be like, well, I don't have to follow that exactly, because that's a screenplay book, right? It gives you that, again, that wiggle room. Like, there's room for you to project your own thing onto this formula. People are here. What's so cool about doing this virtually? People are here someone's here from New Hampshire, someone's here from Austin, Texas.
That's Crystal from New Hampshire. Hi, Crystal. I do a school visit in her school, an amazing school. The 8th graders all read The Leaving, and it's super fun to go up there.
Oh, cool.
My agent is here. He's in Hawaii. My editor is here. My cousin is here from Texas. So it's super fun.
Yeah. So shoot us a shout out if you're, Maine. Awesome.
Maine. Nice.
So we're both in New York City, but we are like so far away from each other that we've been friends. Tara and I have been friends for now like 15 years, I think. Is that right?
I think I met you when I was pregnant with Ellie, and she's about to turn 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but we never see each other in real life.
I know. Well, now no one sees each other.
Okay, so we were talking about books. You were saying you loved a good creepy book. Do you have, summer reading? Let's talk about books for a minute that are not ours. What is a great creepy read, either from your childhood or from recent reading that people should pick up besides with you?
It's so funny. Like, I don't know where I came across it. I came across an old paperback. Maybe I was at my dad's house or something, or I was going through boxes in Queens, and I came across a copy of Lost Horizon by James Hilton. And so Lost Horizon claims to be the first paperback ever published. I don't know if that's true. So it came out in I think 1969, like little kind of trade paperback.
Pocket size.
Yeah. And it's like a Shangri-La kind of story about a bunch of people on a plane crashed, and then they stumble upon this kind of idyllic society. And I remember being obsessed with this when I was a child. And I feel like I've read a couple of books recently that have that kind of like secret island society kind of vibe, which is a trope that I think I've always been drawn to. So I was curious to reread that book this summer to see like what did I like about it when I read it when I was like maybe 12, because it starts like the narrator is like a returned war hero. Like, it doesn't seem like it would be something that I would naturally have gravitated to when I was young. So that's my creepy read for the summer.
Okay. Lost Horizon.
Yeah. Lost Horizon.
And what about AI? Do you have a favorite AI book or movie that you would recommend?
Oh my gosh, I have a least favorite AI movie.
Oh, good. Let's hear it.
It's AI, Artificial Intelligence, the Spielberg one.
Yeah, I saw that when it came out.
I did too.
You guys know what this movie is? It's a Spielberg movie where, like, who is it? It's
Haley Joel
Osment
Yeah.
is a fake child, basically. He's an artificial intelligent child that gets adopted by this family that can't have children. I forget.
Yeah, like society, you need like approval to have a child, so you can have these instead. It's so bad because it's like 2.5 hours long, which was long for a movie, I feel like, back in, I think it was like 86 or something. It just ends over and over again. There was one good ending, and then the movie goes on for like another 45 minutes. But it's actually inspired or based on a short story by Brian Aldiss called Super Toys Last All Summer Long. That's actually a really great short story. And if they had kind of kept more closely to the what's the word? We're all having trouble with words lately because we're
novel or to the book.
Yeah. Like the source material. That's what I was going for. If they had kept more closely to the source material, it would have been a shorter and probably better movie. But I don't know, like I date myself, like War Games with Matthew Broderick and like Dabney Coleman, which is like for any parents here watching with their tween or teen kids, it's this classic 80s cast. War Games for me was kind of like my introduction to AI as a concept when I was a teenager. And I remember just being like completely into it. I thought it was the coolest thing
that
ever.
has some similarities with you, I think, just in that sense of like the technology gets out of control and the kid is in some way just like bound to it, if I'm remembering what was right.
Yeah.
And that's true in Take Me With You. But that's not really the premise of AI, right? In AI, you're basically meant to just love the kid, right?
The idea is that the child is supposed to be lovable, but the mother doesn't bond with him because she kind of she knows that he's not real, and whatever he does is kind of falling short. And again, it's proving that it's like impossible to create AI that really does feel human.
But you know what my favorite AI movie is? Because I knew we were going to talk about this, so I looked up a huge, I love the internet for this kind of thing. Looked up this million.
Is it either Ex Machina or Her? Those are my guesses.
No.
Okay. Wall-E?
No.
iRobot?
No.
Okay.
Big Hero 6.
Oh, yes. That is a good one. And I have a particular soft spot for that movie because it is the first movie that me and my children all watched together on a plane. Everyone was finally old enough to sit and watch a movie on a flight, and we all loved it.
Yeah, we just rewatched it like a couple months ago, and if for the nice, like, young middle grade movie experience, like, it's so emotional, it's so funny. And it really accepts this idea that the robot is sentient.
Yeah.
I mean, the robot is connected to the kid's brother, but it's not that the robot is the kid's brother, right? The robot is its own self.
Yeah. I feel like that fantasy is still out there, and the toys that have existed in our reality are so bad still. Like when Violet was born, my little one, my pal Violet was like the big interactive toy. So we had one, obviously. And it was so bad. Like all you could do is program it to say a couple of things like, my favorite food is, and you would give it a food. But there was nothing that would cause you, you weren't enamored with it ever. There was nothing lovable or huggable about it. And I feel like that's been the case with I remember I was out of college when Tamagotchis came out. Tamagotchis were these little electronic toys that people wore around their necks, and you had to press a couple of buttons to feed it or give it water to keep it alive. And I remember just really looking down on people who had these, because it was people in their 20s were walking around with these around their neck. And I was like, this is just such a dumb fake AI. Like it wasn't even, it's not like a real, it wasn't learning, it wasn't growing, it was just programmed. And that seemed very uninteresting to me. But I feel like in some of the research I did for Take Me With You, there are, you know, some pretty advanced robots now around the globe. And I watched some amazing videos on YouTube of like nursing homes in China where they have robots come in to interact with older people. And the elderly folks are like making fun of the robot and saying that it's fresh and, you know, snappy. And I'm so interested still in the fact that we just all, as a people, as a humanity, people still want robots so badly. I mean, we all want robots to clean our houses and stuff, but people still want robots to be kind of personable and imitate reality.
Although we're also very afraid of it. It's like we both tell stories about how much we love it, like Big Hero 6. Yeah. And there's many of the stories are like about how disturbing, inadequate, or terrifying, in the case of Take Me With You, that robot-human relationship is.
Yeah, no, it's true. Most AI movies that are the biggest ones that I can think of, they don't end well for the people all the time. Or there's definitely like a very dark moment where the technology seems to have really taken over and it's touch and go. Who's going to come out on top? Yeah.
Okay, back to summer reading.
Yeah.
Well, it's a month where we're even more than we might normally do reading and supporting LGBTQ plus creators and also Black creators. And there's so much going on in YA at the moment, but there's also obviously adult books. So I'm curious. I've been trying to keep my reading even broader than normal or than typical in this season to keep my heart and mind open. And I'm curious if you have any recs for Pride. Let's start with that.
Oh, for Pride, yeah. I was thinking about who might be here in this book, Take Me With You, and like what kind of audience it might hopefully attract. And I feel like it's kind of like a more slick, kind of speculative sci-fi kind of crowd. And the first person who came to mind as like a read like would be Alex London.
Oh yeah.
I feel like his stuff, he has Proxy and its sequel, and then he has Black Wings.
I haven't read Black Wings yet. Have you?
It's falconry. So I mean, like falconry is like the coolest thing ever. So I feel like Alex London's books are kind of like, I feel like my people who like Take Me With You, I feel like they might like that. And then it's like people who, if anyone here read my book Dreamland Social Club, I feel like I always want to, it's an old book by Bennett Madison, but it's called September Girls.
Oh, that's a beautiful
book. It's just a beautiful book, like a mermaid fantasy that's also kind of speculative and out there in its own way. So those would be my Pride recommendations.
Yeah, September Girls is like this collective narration of like this group of mermaids.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Real and fascinatingly written.
Yeah.
I like that book. Yeah, those are wonderful recommendations. So Bennett Madison and Alex London for speculative. And then what are some, have you been reading any Black writers that are new to you or that are favorites?
So a favorite, and we share an editor who's here, Renee Watson is a favorite of mine. And it's funny because mentioning her today feels kind of, well, I saw on social media, she's celebrating today like 10 years of being published, which is exciting. But she also got like a shout out on the Today Show today. So I don't think she really needs me to give her a bump. But huge fan. She writes really just lovely YA and middle grade, just characters that are just so three-dimensional and lovable and have a lot of stuff thrown at them. And they've become favorites for my daughters and myself together. we just ordered The Poet X, which we hadn't read, which I know is a National Book Award finalist.
Love it.
And my daughter and I, my 13-year-old and two of her friends and their parents, were going to try to do this summer a book club of Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye, because I haven't. It's a classic, and I read it in college and then not again. So my daughter hasn't read any Toni Morrison, so we're going to start with that this summer, the group project.
Nice. Okay, so in the comments it says Renee asked me to send her "Take Me With You" today because she.
Good.
So you and Renee are in a mutual.
We are in a little bit of
society.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask Tara one or two more short questions, a little kind of lightning round type of thing, and then if you guys have
don't ask me what my Hogwarts house is because I refuse to answer that. That's always a lightning round question.
I will not ask Hogwarts. I took a quiz when I was Slytherin, and I basically usually identify as Ravenclaw. And okay, we weren't going to talk about this. Okay, but anyway, I was shocked. And then I thought it was true. And then I felt seen by the freaking Sorting Hat on Pottermore. Yeah. And now it was official. And that's.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I've known you a long time.
Okay. All right. But now we'll be in the house together. We'll be all right.
Exactly.
The boys are very cute in Slytherin. Okay. This is my lightning round. They're very easy and you can pass on anything that you want. And people, I'm expecting you to put some questions in the comments so that Tara can answer your questions. Or if you have a question for me, I will, of course, answer it as well. Okay. Do you have a favorite current TV show?
No, I have a puppy. The puppy let us watch TV. I think before we got the puppy, my favorite show. Oh, I watched that. What's it called? Run. That like mini.
Yeah.
That was fun. And I started watching Normal People, and I thought I would really enjoy it. But then we got a puppy, and we haven't watched TV in 3 weeks.
I love it.
Yeah, but I do like Westworld for AI programming. I feel like Westworld has a lot of interesting questions about like, that obsession with like how human are they? How are they imitating humanity? Yeah. So it's on theme. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever see the original Westworld, the movie?
No, I didn't.
Oh my God. Well, I'm sure it's like very objectionable in 15 different ways.
Okay.
And I haven't seen it in a very long time, but it is like one of those movies that they would show like at midnight in college and we'd stay up.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And it was so intense and creepy and just a very bizarre.
Okay,
movie.
cool.
And the TV show is good, but the TV show is infinitely more like sensitive and less weird. It's like, it's a very, very surreal movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was not a lightning. So,
sorry.
No, but I always end up wanting to talk about the things. Okay, I'm going to the corner store, right? I'm in Brooklyn, you're in Queens. I'm just going to the bodega down the corner. I'm going to get you candy bar. What are you going to get?
You're going to get me M&Ms.
That's not a candy bar.
Snickers.
Okay, so you're totally classic. All right, and then we're going to eat our candy bars and we're going to play video games. What are we going to play?
Oh gosh, Pong. No, we're gonna play Tetris. No, but that's not a 2-player game. I kind of love Pong. So here's the thing. So I played Tetris for hours and hours and hours when I was in college on a very old Mac, like the SE2 that had like the tiny little window. And I kind of decided that I can't play video games. Oh, except Frogger. Frogger was my jam.
You're so old, though.
I was so old.
Wait, the whole book is
but I don't play new games because I get addicted to them. And I just don't.
This is what is what Take Me With You is about. It's about you.
Yeah.
And your video game.
Yeah, totally. I just can't play them because I get addicted, and I don't have time. Yeah.
All right. Who is a really great YA author that we have not talked about yet today?
Oh gosh, a great YA author that we haven't talked about. So you know what's interesting? Her name is Phoebe North, and we're Facebook friends. And I mostly lately have been reading stuff that she's written. She has a new book deal, and I don't know the details, but I've been reading some essays that she's written on Medium this past, like, the beginning of the year. And I feel like her voice is so incredible. And she writes, she's writing like memoir kind of pieces. And I can't wait to see what her next book is, because I just feel like she's really tapping into a very powerful part of her career. So I'm excited to see what she does next. Who are you reading? Who are you excited about these days?
I haven't honestly been reading a ton of YA. But I did just read David Levithan's new book, and I always love him. I just think
he's so great. Yeah.
I read 19 Love Songs, which is short stories, which is really a beautiful thing to read in the middle of sheltering at home. Like they were just like hopeful and beautiful. They had some of them were funny, some of them were nostalgic. Mm-hmm. And it just felt like going into a very sweet world of human connection. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of his books are much sort of broader reaching than that. FBA is like a high concept book. And
he's so high concept. I love his high concept books.
Yeah. But yeah, he's kind of a go-to. Like, I think I've read almost everything he's written.
Yeah. Oh, I have a question. There's a question. Look.
Yeah.
Hi, Celia. Celia has a question. Of course she does.
Okay. So I have more lightning round questions. Let's ask Celia.
Oh yeah.
She writes, I love how Tara's YA books manage to appeal to both boys and girls, young men and young women. That is so hard at that age. Is it a deliberate effort?
With this book, absolutely, yes. So my book, The Leaving, did really well with boys, and previous books of mine maybe hadn't. So, and girls. So that's why Crystal's got this great group of 8th graders who read the book. And, our school visits there, the boys and girls are all kind of equally engaged. And then I wrote 2 books between that were more kind of straight first person female narrator. And they don't seem to catch the attention of boys as readily. So when I was like, okay, I need a new idea for a book, I was like, I want to try to replicate the formula, for lack of a better word, of The Leaving, and have like several narrators, both genders. And also, I feel like with The Leaving, I was really interested in all the memory science that went into and researched the, what would it take for kids to like not remember their whole childhood. And with Take Me With You, I got really into the idea of technology and AI as like this very interesting background topic that I think hopefully boys are going to be as interested in as girls at this point. So with Take Me With You, it was a very deliberate choice to say I'm going to have 2 male narrators, 2 female narrators. And it feels like one of my more, I don't want to say more masculine reads, because that's like a weird way to describe it, but I hope that it finds an audience across genders.
Yeah, I think boys will love it. But I mean, should boys be open to reading books with female protagonists? And
of course,
yeah. They should. How many boys have read The Hunger Games? A gazillion. How many boys have read, what's that other one? Veronica Roth's book. But they, in other words, boys will certainly read female protagonists.
Divergent.
Yes. Yeah. They will do it. They totally will. But I do think there can be sometimes resistance, or teachers and librarians assume that if the book is in a juggernaut, the boy is going to say no unless there's a male character to identify with. Right. So it's a complicated thing, I think, trying to write for people of all gender identities, because reading is very gendered in our culture. and the roots of that are like deep and messed up. It's not just as simple as like it's the boy's responsibility, or or the teacher's responsibility, or the librarians, or the parents, or whatever. That's an interesting question. Okay, I'm going back to the lightning round.
When Crystal just posted, Alan Gratz is a good YA author, which is so true. And Emily and I are both very, very good friends with Alan, and he'll be delighted that he got a shout out in the chat.
Oh yeah, Alan is
an awesome guy and an awesome writer who has worked very hard to get to the level of craft and success that he's at now. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm thrilled for him. Okay, I'm going back to the lightning round for a little bit. Okay. Feel free to throw questions into the, I don't know which way to point, but wherever it is. A vacation spot that you are imagining going to.
Oh gosh, any one of them. I want to take my daughters to Ireland because I lived there for a little while, a blip. I did right after college. And I have friends still that I'm in touch with there, and would love to take my daughters there. It's part of, my Irish heritage. Before I was in Altebrando, I was in McCarthy. So that might have been a trip that we would have taken this summer, depending on how things went. But now, obviously, not happening.
Next year in Ireland.
Hopefully, yes.
The best thing you can cook.
Ooh, I'm a really good cook. I'm going to say, the best thing I can cook.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be the best. A very good thing you can cook.
A very good thing that I can cook is like a sausage and broccoli rabe pasta dish.
Oh, that sounds good.
The trick is you have to blanch the broccoli rabe, because otherwise it's too bitter. And it's always a pain in the neck. You're like, why am I blanching this and then cooking it? But it has to be done.
I just blanched asparagus right before we got on this call. And I was reluctant to blanch it.
It's so worth it. Otherwise it's all straw-like.
I know. I'm making a graduation brunch. I have a high school brunch tomorrow. So the book is set in Astoria. Take me with you. And by the way, if you guys who are watching us have not bought it yet, you should definitely buy it from Astoria Bookshop, which is at astoriabookshop.com. And it's going across at the bottom of your screen.
And you get a signed book plate if you buy through Astoria Bookshop before midnight. Probably. Yeah. Because you could pick up any of Tara's other books while you're there, and you would not be sorry. Okay, a cool thing. So the book is set in Astoria. Take me with you, and we talked about it a little earlier. If you're just joining now, it's a neighborhood in Queens where Tara has been for 17 years. It's a huge part of the texture of the novel. So tell us a cool thing about Astoria. Oh gosh. Well, I know that in Queens, and it's probably true of Astoria, there's like 138 languages that are spoken by the residents of the borough. So I think that's like astonishing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't know. Queens is so great. Astoria is so great. Through this pandemic, it's been hard to watch like a lot of our favorite events, things that we really enjoy doing with our neighbors and community getting canceled. Like there's this amazing summer solstice celebration at this Socrates Sculpture Park on the waterfront that we like to go to. There's just a lot of the Noguchi Museum is an amazing destination in Astoria. We can walk to it from our house. It's just a really vibrant, wonderful place. The only Astoria event that I have to laugh because it was so kind of disappointing was there was a tree lighting, like a Christmas tree lighting that we went to with a bunch of friends, and the tree was so small and the lights were so like unspectacular that when they plugged it in, it was like a bad movie because it was like okay, tree. Woohoo! Other than that, I mean, I love Astoria. It's just an incredibly dynamic, diverse, wonderful place to live. I'm happy to be raising
language. That's so cool.
Yeah, I know. Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We are almost out of time. If you
Okay.
guys have any more questions, you should shoot them. Somebody's saying Charlie Brown. It's a Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
Oh, Crystal, I'll send you a signed book plate since you pre-ordered in November.
So I think we should end. This is like a cloud, everyone always asks this question, but what's next? What should we look out for from you?
So this is exciting. So I think it says it in my bio. Yeah. So this is the first time in the bio of this book. It says a little bit about me, and it says she's also the creator of the pinup podcast Dream Breachers. And that's the first time that information has appeared anywhere. So I have been working for the last year on a scripted podcast, like a middle grade fantasy story. There's going to be 10 episodes, and the scripts are done, and they're just waiting for actors to be able to go into the studio to record it. And hopefully that will start releasing later in the summer. So I don't have any books in the pipeline right now, playing around with some ideas, but the next thing for me is going to be the podcast. And even though they haven't recorded the first season, they've already signed me up for a second season. So I'm going to be working on that over the summer and into the fall. So I'm really excited. Playing in the audio space has been really fun. Totally different way to just look at storytelling. So I'm really excited for that to get out into the world.
What's it called again?
It's called Dream Breachers.
Dream Breachers.
Yes.
So people are curious about ordering Tara's books with assigned book plates. Astoria Bookshop just put the direct link into the chat, but you can also just go to Astoria Bookshop, and if you order Tara's book, it will come with a signed book plate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they will hook you up. I also want to say that you should be shopping indie and locally as much as you can, even if you have to shop online. So Astoria is one of many independent bookstores that you might be supporting. And today you should definitely support them. But in general, you should be shopping online at your independent bookstores or at bookshop.org, which is like an umbrella site for those. All right, so order Tara's beautiful, thrilling book. It was so fun to talk to you, my friend.
Yeah, this was really fun. Let's do it again. Like, what are you doing tomorrow? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like we just had a Zoom cocktail chat, and then there were some.
Yeah, this is like the longest I've spoken to someone who, like an adult who is not my husband, since March, I think. So thrilling.
That was really fun. And congratulations. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. And congratulations. So Emily's most recent book is called Again, Again, and super cool romantic story about possibilities in love and life in the multiverse.
Thank you, honey. And thank you, Cameron. All right. So goodbye, sweetie.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Bye. Thank you.